Oh, apparently we are live, and there's Krim is the first one we can see in the chat there.
Hello, Krim.
Hi there, good to
Nice
see
to
you.
see you.
Yeah. How are things out there? I don't know how many folk are out there already watching us. But how come we have acquired 48 likes so far in this show?
48 likes in the first few seconds.
Do you know what? I think we might have a fan base here.
Well, that would be nice. Hello, Greg.
Yeah. As ever,
it's for me.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. The voice from the green room. James is waiting patiently. I'll have to shut him up myself if I'm.
Hello, Jimmy. It's nice to
Graham.
Yes,
Sibylla, David,
Yes.
Wild Rowena from the Netherlands.
From the Netherlands.
Hi,
What's
Jimmy.
your weather like?
Yeah.
David, good to see you.
Yeah. So
David said the likes are from the preview. Yeah.
the likes are
Well,
from the
thank God people
preview.
liked it.
That's fair enough. I mustn't get overexcited. Okay, but 38 folks have joined us already, and it's only in the flipping pre-show. Hi there, Ian. Hi, Bertie. Have we met before? Where are you hailing from, Bertie? Why it's like you can't find us on your computer? Okay, well you're here anyway. That's the important thing.
Diane
Hello
from
from
Calgary. Hi. Hello, Gilman.
Well, Tree says he's at Stanton Drew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Are you in the field with the sheep, in the pub, or at home in Stanton Drew, or just passing through? Jorman, hello, good to see you, mate. Let us know.
Ron from Hawaii. I'm so impressed.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
You must have some decent weather then. Better than the rest of us. Hello, Jojo.
Indeed. Guys, let us know. Is the sound okay? It is Rupert. As your volume seemed to drop for me just a moment. You stepped away from your microphone or what? Yeah, I think I meant that.
Well, I did. I moved an inch or two.
Oh, it seems very quiet now. Could anybody out there confirm that the balance between us sound-wise is okay? As long as you're hearing it, maybe I just need to turn him up in my bit over here. So we got loads in store tonight for you folks. As you know, now it's a kind of a freewheeling, open discussion. You'll already know, of course, that James Dilley is waiting in the green room to join us, who will be adding his expertise and wisdom to the goings-on. There is one particular item that we would like his take on, and it speaks to his area of expertise, but we'll get to that sort of a bit later on. Diorman says it all sounds okay, so very happy days.
Yes. I'm sorry, sounding vague looking at your comments here. Well, hello everybody. It gets to the point where it's scrolled up out of my window here, and it's nice that you're all. This is the time now. It's 5:02. So, that's all good. Yes, no, it's amazing that you're just from everywhere, which always amazes me. Cork as well. There you go. Hello, Mark.
Yeah.
No, we got a busy show tonight, haven't we?
Well, they always will be, because we're stuffing as much as we can into this. I have to say, folks, a lot of this stuff we're going to be discussing is new to us as well. So hopefully we'll do a good job of putting some context on it, or putting a spin on it for you that has you excited about prehistory and what's going on in the world out there. But yeah, it's a funny thing. I was just saying to Rupert, every time we go live, we're just feeling a little bit underprepared, because it's not like we've learned anything to taken anything specially on board in order to produce the show. Anyway,
we always feel unprepared. It doesn't matter what we feel unprepared.
Yes. I think you ought to know I'm not a real archaeologist. Sorry, that's the punchline to a rather long shaggy dog story. It probably doesn't have any meaning for anybody.
Yeah. I have to tell you that with the news items that pull together this, Mike and I still spent some time in the afternoon throwing things off our list because it's like we'd be here until tomorrow morning if we do all of these, and there is so much stuff going on archaeologically around the world all the time. It's just
and some of it, to be honest, does take you off into the weeds a bit much, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's not something we want to do with our viewers.
It's a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit hole, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi there, Nigel. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yes, hi. It's remarkable, actually, some of the stuff that's going on. And you think, hats off to the people who are, particularly in some of the drier research, that you think, it's so good that some of these researchers really have got tenacity, keep grinding away, extracting data, because it's I'm not sure that I could do it.
Oh, I don't think I can. Yeah, we're wannabes. The actual
I don't think we are.
Well, no, but the actual real job of archaeology is a bit, forgive the slight pun, it's bone crunching,
but that's the thing, isn't it? Because we're excited to be generalists, aren't we? And
but it's an easy and lofty place
about
to be at.
Everything.
Yeah,
and as soon as you immerse yourself in any particular zone, then that's it. You've got to be a specialist for at least for a period of time. And,
Simon, hi there. Yeah, how's the lads? The lads are fine, thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Hi, Kate.
Hello, Martin. Good to see you.
Oh, good. Excellent. Terrific. Hi, Kevin. Excellent job. All right, how are we doing? 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go.
Yeah.
We have 94 people in the room, which, I've been looking around, and even, on YouTube, and there are quite a lot of, well-known people that do live shows. And, in the low hundreds, as we tend to get. It's good. It's really, really good. So I really want to thank you guys. Before we start, the regular suspects who pop up here and make our numbers good and make the whole experience good. It's just brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, there seems to be a lot of people making it on time for the first time.
Kim's just asked, while these messages are still in my window, I'm a big fan of J. Harrison. Are you familiar with her work on ancient Greek religion? Actually, not at all, Kim. I've got to be said that's partly because, or probably largely because of what we do, by definition prehistory, that as soon as you get in fact, it's one of the reasons we'll be talking about this later in the show, but it's another reason why we don't usually talk about things like ancient Greek and ancient Greece and Egypt and what have you, because it's history. But I'll look her up. Thank you for the heads up. It's all good to know.
Thank you for the kind offer, Lily, but no, all's well. I can still afford a razor. It's an actual choice at the moment.
That's told you. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how long it'll last. I'm quite comfortable with it so far, though. Yeah. Andrew, standing with stones saved my sanity. Bless you. Well, I mean, that warms the cockles of the hearts. I'm not sure it saved our sanity.
No. No. Thank you.
Yeah.
We had fun though, didn't we?
Splendid. 10 seconds, and it all happens.
See you on the other side.
Hello, good evening, welcome. We are the Prehistory Guys, and this is the Prehistory Guys Unplugged, an evening of loose conversation based around the latest prehistoric archaeology, news and discoveries from around the world. I'm Michael Bott, and he's...
I'm Rupert Soskian. Welcome. Good to see you all. Yes, we've got a busy night tonight, haven't we?
Yes, indeed. Do you care to illuminate us further on just a little bit of what we've got in store, what we're going to be talking about
Well,
tonight?
what we've got in store tonight, apart from the fact that our guest tonight, Dr. James DILLEY, we're always very happy to have James on, good friend, and good Lord, what he doesn't know about prehistoric lithics and all sorts. Anyway, we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I mean, James's ancient craft. I mean, it says it all. There's nothing more you can say after that. Mr. James DILLEY is ancient craft. What is?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't
we'll
really
point you to
embellish
his
on that.
website shortly, and
It will
yes,
indeed.
what he does is quite wonderful. But news items, though, I'll give you a taster of what we've got coming up. There's a discovery of a 10,500-year-old settlement in the north of England. An Iron Age site. We don't normally do Iron Age, do we? Because, being prehistory guys, but
Well, it's still prehistory.
Iron Age is a
but-
little bit late. The exciting thing here, though, is that it's a site that's been found in London, which we'll talk about anyway. That's a nice discovery. There's new findings at the site of Lagash in Iraq. It's been known about for a while, but there's some exciting stuff there. A 1.2 million year old obsidian axe factory been found in Ethiopia. We want to get
Calm
James's
yourself,
take
James.
on that
Calm
as well.
yourself.
Yes. And then I almost don't want to say this at the top of this show, but there's a site been found in Eastern Europe. Well, let's call it a mass grave at the moment, and we'll go into the further details of that later on. I love this one.
Yeah.
It's quite hideous, but anyway.
And
I mean, that's a taster. There's
and as ever, we will round up the evening with something a little bit lighter, a little bit whimsy, we call it. Something that amuses us anyway, though the people at the base of it may be taking it very
utterly
seriously.
bonkers, I call this one.
But yeah, stick around to the end for that one. So before we get into it, a few of the things that we've been up to recently. Majorly, I've been finishing off a promo film for our next huge project. I mean, talk about throwing your cap over the wall with this one. I'll show you the promo in a little while. Apart from that, though, we love doing these Prehistory Guys Unplugged. But of course, we've got the regular, more formal stuff coming up, and we've got two things in train. The major one of which is we've decided to, as time goes on, do a few list shows. We did a list, what was it? The 10 weird things from prehistory you probably didn't know about. We're doing 10 amazing, whatever superlative word we choose to put in there, megalithic sites from around the world that aren't Göbekli Tepe or Stonehenge. So that's sort of in train, in production. And next week, hopefully, we're going to do a piece about violence and warfare in the Neolithic in northwest Europe. That's what's coming up. But anyway, back to the point. I mean, as many people in the chat know, we wouldn't be here doing this, Rupert, if it wasn't for Standing with Stones, the film we made back in 2007/2008, about the stones and stuff. And people have always asked us, when are you going to do the next one? And we almost sort of committed ourselves to doing another single film and realizing it was too much to bite off at once. And it sort of evolved now into beginning to do a series of shows. We think 5 shows, which take us right from Turkey and Göbekli Tepe and those areas, early farming, where it started off, and bring us right up the Danube, right across the Mediterranean, up through northwestern Europe, and eventually to Britain, telling the story of the whole of the Neolithic in northwest Europe. It's called Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge, and we're asking for support, funding, to get us out there, hopefully this year indeed, to start filming that. So yeah, what else? Do you want to say anything more about that, Rupert?
I think you've covered it for the moment. I mean, the important thing is, as you said, we'd been talking for a long time about doing Standing with Stones 2, because that's what a lot of you wanted, and what a lot of people have been asking us, when are you going to do the sequel? And as Michael said, that we had fully planned and committed to doing it until we realized quite the scale of what we were trying to do. And it working out that actually, no, if we do it as a 5-part series, it makes it sound easier,
and
but
not in not in the same way as Standing with Stones was a formal, written, scripted show. We intend to be the two of us traveling, so it'll be a vlog, half vlog style travelogue. And the idea is, that we're taking you along and experiencing the places and the travel so you'll be with us experiencing the travel and the places that we visit, and hopefully we'll be piecing together a really great narrative as we go. It's an ambitious project, but
it is.
We're crazy to attempt it. But here was the point, though. I'm getting to it, so I'm going to run the promo film for it. By the way, all this, as you'll find out, is the funding for it will be through our Buy Me a Coffee campaign, our Buy Me a Coffee page, which is really easy to donate through. The link, as you'll see, is in the description below. But this, what was it, a few months ago now, I was down with Rupert in the south of France, near where he lives, and we filmed this. We would like you to help us to take you on an extraordinary journey.
We're asking you to help us answer the question of not only how did this amazing monument down here in the south of France come to be, this is the Domaine des Fades near Cyril, but what led to the construction of thousands and thousands of megalithic monuments throughout northwestern Europe, and ultimately, at the end of the Neolithic period, Stonehenge, about 1,000 miles that way, on the Salisbury Plain.
The answer isn't here nor on Salisbury Plain, and in order to even begin to tell the story of the Neolithic, we need to be somewhere else, and at another time, thousands of years even before this ancient monument was built. And for that, we need to head east.
Our passion is in helping to tell the story of how, from the earliest farming in Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent, humans came to leave their mark on the world in the form of the great tombs, henges and megaliths that we wonder at today.
We plan to make a series of films to illustrate that story, and we'd like your help. We need your support to raise the funds necessary to begin filming the series, starting right now with the first episode.
Supporting this project is really easy. We have a Buy Me a Coffee webpage where you can make a contribution for as little as $5 or as much as you want. Each and every single dollar raised will go towards the travel and subsistence costs necessary for each stage of filming.
You'll find loads more information about our plans and our funding goals on our Buy Me a Coffee website. For the moment, though, it seems that we've come as far as we can. In front of us is the Mediterranean Sea.
That way, that lies Italy, Sardinia, Greece, the Aegean, Turkey, Cyprus, northeast. What have we got northeast? We've got the Great Steppe, we've got the Balkans, up the Danube. Yeah. Ah, good grief. That way. What have we got that way?
Well, if we turn right, go that way, turn right, then we go along the bottom part of Spain, of Andalusia, and up the Atlantic seaboard, up to Brittany, which leaves only one place left to go, really, isn't it?
Go home for us, yes.
Yeah. The point is, we're going to have to visit all these places if we're going to stand a chance, any chance at all, of explaining the presence on Salisbury Plain of a set of sarsen stones we call Stonehenge.
Yes, so please donate now and help us to start that journey.
We thank you very much indeed. There we are. Oh, Eris, thank you so much. Oh my goodness gracious me.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
That's
lovely
really,
people.
really kind. Yeah. Nice one. Anyway, no, the point is that, there are people who know us know there are two ways of funding us. We do have a Patreon campaign as well, which, gives us the day-to-day. Keeps us going day to day. What happens when any donations made to the Buy Me a Coffee campaign goes into a tranche that's kept separate for film production. So every penny of that, just goes into the expenses incurred, like travel, food, and hotels and things like that. Nothing else.
Therapy.
That could get expensive. No. Anyway, I just thought I'd clear that up. But thanks for your attention, and and thanks for your nice comments about us as well. I suspect you might get a little bored with time of seeing it because, of course, we're going to have to rotate this and show it a few times in order to get to our goal, which is around about £5,000. We think we'll get the first.
Get us going on the first one. Yeah. Thank you, Fetus, and thank you, Kate, as well. Thank you.
Nice one. So moving. Yes, Rupert, you were going to say.
No. Was I? I don't think I was. No, it's
yes,
fine.
You were.
I'm losing track of comments and trying not to get distracted. But
don't get distracted.
I'm hoping that there's Fetus said that my images fall apart earlier on.
Yeah.
It's as good as it gets, I'm afraid. I'm on a 4G hookup here. I'm in rural middle of nowhere, and yes. As somebody else commented, thank you, Simon. I've been trying to get a decent system down here for well over a year, and it's a nightmare. But hey, it's a miracle that we can do this in the first place. So
absolutely,
we'll run with that.
But thank you so much,
yes,
Simon.
it's not my
nice
camera
one.
and stuff. My camera is all perfect. It's just it's just network.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I think we ought to move swiftly along and get James in, don't you?
Yes.
To which end, anybody that knows of James or doesn't know James, what better way to introduce him, to show him part of his page on his ancientcraft.co.uk page. James founded Ancient Craft, as you can see in front of you, in 2009. His focus is towards educating and reconnecting people to their prehistoric heritage. Strongly believes that the most effective way to engage individuals and communities in prehistory is through creation and delivery of interactive experiences using quality replicas and experienced specialists. He is an experienced specialist, and that's confirmed by the fact that he's in demand from film companies and television, and of course events up and down the country to lend his expertise. I'll stop waffling and get him on. I caught you.
Well done.
Yeah, sorry. What?
What he says as if he didn't know. James, welcome to the programme. I hope you haven't got bored senseless there waiting for us to get you around to you there.
I was watching the trailer thinking, I wonder how I can stow away on this trip to see all the Neolithic. But I reckon that'll be a few more coffee donations. I have to sell a few more hand axes.
We could drag you up Mount Viso with us.
Yeah.
Oh, you wouldn't need to drag me. You wouldn't need to drag me.
I think it might be the other way around. I think it might be the other way around, Rupert. James has got the serious advantage in terms of years on us. We're worried that by the time we get to Mount Viso, we'll be...
They'll be local. So I'm sure that mountain was bigger yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably going to need a Sherpa by the time we get there. But
if not a mobility scooter.
It's good to see you, James. When were you last on as a guest? I can't remember. It's not that long ago, but
no, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, it's slightly offset because I sort of watch you frequently like everyone else, so I feel like I've not been far away. So and because when I'm working in the workshop for napping or waiting for the furnace to get to temperature, I'm listening to you, so I've constantly got you in my head.
Oh my lord!
Good grief.
Yeah, so it's
who'd
all
want
going
that?
wrong. Yeah, I know.
You need to get out more.
I mean, you were talking about therapy earlier, honestly.
So what have you been up to? What have the last couple of months been for you then? Because I know you've been crazy busy.
Yeah, and it's we've been getting ready for the year ahead. So we've been planning. I say Em and I. That on the website you'll see it's not just me. I hit the rocks. And I do some of the talking. Some of it is just confident bullshit. Some of it's backed up by actual stuff. But for the website and the social media and the filming stuff, if anyone's been on the channel, that's all Em. That's all her wonderful work, which you'll hopefully see more of in the coming weeks. As a little clue, keep an eye on the Must Farm social media page.
Oh, brilliant.
Couple of
weeks. Really? Okay.
I'm presuming also that Ems is responsible. I'm just going to cut back to the screen share that there, James, that these photographs that Ems is responsible for, yeah?
Yeah, she is, but not just the photos. Actually, some of the objects in the photograph as well. So the Nebra Sky disc that you went past, she did the gold work on that. I just hammered out the bronze. I did the sort of rough and ready bit. She generally does the gold work on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, cool! Great partnership.
What a talented household. Yeah.
There we are.
Excellent. But Must Farm, for any of you folks who might not know, Must Farm, affectionately known as the Pompeii of Britain, because it's an astonishing site that it's just so well preserved. The extent of things that have been preserved, including textiles still on the loom. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
It's a time capsule, one of those rarities you could call a time capsule. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
is that it, James? Anything else you wanted to throw in there before we crack on?
I mean, it's actually going to come up as one of our stories. That I will mention and dip back into it, but partly for Must Farm, partly for one of the stories, and partly for myself. If you guys out there are fans of Digging for Britain, this Sunday's episode will probably feature some familiar faces from Must Farm, the site we're talking about, and various others. So if you haven't been watching it already, tune into that episode because it might be the best. And look out for the world's smallest archery target I was provided with.
Yeah. Really?
I'm not a natural archer. I don't get time to practice archery, and it's just like, we'll have this deer for you, and you might as well have brought along a chicken leg, but it's good fun.
Excellent. All right, we'll keep an eye out for that. Super.
Fetus, thank you so much. Fetus apparently has brought us some coffee.
Thank you very much indeed.
Indeed. We will try to pay attention to the chat as we go along. Hopefully we won't miss too much. I think we should get on and actually look at something. Now then, if I press the right button, that will do. And we'll go to the first item, which is... Oh, it's working so well already. Rare finds... offer insight into Stone Age life. So what we've got here is... Oh, this is the stuff that's been found up north near Scarborough, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Let me put that on full screen so people can see what I'm seeing. Finds discovered at a Stone Age settlement unearthed in North Yorkshire have helped shed new light on the lives of hunter-gatherers living around 10,500 years ago. Archaeologists uncovered animal bones, tools and weapons along with rare evidence of woodworking during excavations at the site near Scarborough. Scarborough, in case anybody doesn't know, up on the northeast coast of England, and a very fine place to be. Experts said the items suggested their owners were far from struggling to survive, as many may imagine of people alive at the time. Dr. Nick Overton from the University of Manchester said the excavation had enabled them to learn more about these prehistoric communities. The site originally lay on the shore of an island in an ancient lake and dates to the Mesolithic period, according to the team from the Universities of Manchester and Chester, with thick deposits of peat gradually burying and preserving the site over thousands of years. It may be sort of worth... it's sort of a bit of context here. 10,500 years ago, as before the Sturga slide, and so therefore, although Scarborough is right on the coast now, then it was well inland, and Britain was still well joined to the continent at that time. So let me just continue there. Sorry,
it's what were you going to carry on reading that? It's
I was, yeah.
Okay, go on then.
So, well, if you had something, it's so rare to find material in this old in such good condition. Dr. Overton said the Mesolithic in Britain was before the introduction of pottery or metals, so finding organic remains like bone, antler and wood, which are usually not preserved, are incredibly important, helping us to reconstruct people's lives. Team said see, look at that, the carving on that antler point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just quite lovely.
And a grubby archaeologist's hands. See, that's the real life of being an
I think that's a clean archaeologist's hands.
That's a clean archaeologist's hands.
Yeah, that's clean.
So the team said the dig uncovered evidence of a wide range of animals being hunted, including elk and red deer, and smaller mammals such as beavers and water birds. The bodies of hunted animals were also butchered and parts of them intentionally deposited in the wetlands at the island site, they said. Hunting weapons made of animal bone and antler had been decorated and taken apart before being deposited on the island's shore. Thus, the archaeologists believed showed that Mesolithic people had strict rules about how the remains of animals and objects used to kill them were disposed of. Now, you've got something to say about that, Rupert, but before we do, look at that harpoon. Yeah. Interestingly, you see, my mind went straight to, when I saw that harpoon there, went straight to the harpoon that was dredged up from the middle of the North Sea by that trawler. Was it? It's a long time ago, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Oa Bank harpoon.
Yeah, it was the 1930s that came up.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
something crazy
it's
like that.
Slightly different harpoon design, but it's a similar uni-serial, so one-sided barb. Probably similar period.
But that's right. But it just goes to show you some of the tricks your mind plays, because it was dredged up from the bottom of the sea. you automatically associate it with, with harpooning at sea, as in whaling and stuff. And so this, being found near Scarborough, which would have been well inland at the time, makes you think, oh, well, no, they too were fishing in a lake, which is now at the bottom of the sea. Duh. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting site, and I've seen that a couple of people have pointed out that it's similar or very close to Star Car, and actually it seems to be part of the same landscape system. So very similar date, similar culture, or seemingly similar culture anyway. I think it was Chipper Chap who spotted that in the chat. But this site will be featuring on this Digging for Britain this Sunday, so you'll actually be able to see some of the footage of some of the material being picked out.
Brilliant.
But the harpoon, the decorated harpoon, is an interesting one, and I feel this is me being the party pooper a little bit. It's I wouldn't call it decoration. It's to do with actually hafting the harpoon, so you get a much better stick. Like you put striations on sort of a wooden surface or with grout even to get a better stick. But if you go over to the likes of Scandinavia, National Museum of Denmark, that style of putting chevrons or lines in the base of harpoons is incredibly common. And then for the really high-end stuff, they're so intensely decorated. And here we get the Star Car pendant with a few lines, and that's about it. It just art is not a thing here. But
this is why we have you on. This is why we have you on, James. Keeping it real.
As the party pooper.
No, keeping it real.
That was very tactfully put. I really appreciate that.
Yes, no, we're picky about keeping it real. I think there is a more pragmatic answer to anything than it has to be Ed.
Anyway,
One last thing I will throw in there is that the deposition of some of the hunting equipment and animal parts is quite interesting, because they appear to have been doing that at the edge of the lake, but over at Star Car, they were intentionally depositing the headdresses into the water at the edge of the lake. So this activity of intentionally depositing things at the edge of lakes, whether it be animal parts, possible headdresses, or hunting equipment, that seems to be quite consistent, almost obviously throughout prehistory, but around this quite localized area, it's really quite consistent.
The suggestion to me, and I don't know if the on-the-ground evidence confirms this, is that things there are being deposited in the margins. Margins are terribly important places, aren't they? In the minds of.
It's that quite useful phrase that seems to be used quite a lot. Liminal space.
That's the one. As we did in Standing with Stones, where you nearly burnt yourself silly and. Round a campfire, yes, talking about liminal space and creatures of the night.
We did. We had to break the convention doing that, and we had to film that when we had nothing but weeks and weeks of rain, and everything was sopping wet. And we went into the woods in a final window when it wasn't raining, and trying to make our planned sequence of film with a bonfire. Everything was absolutely sopping wet, and yes,
except you managed to set yourself on fire. It's in the
fuel was
outtakes.
Necessary. Yes. No. The only issue I had with what was written in this piece was their choice of saying that these people had strict rules about the deposition of animal parts or what have you. And I thought that really is a leap too far. They might have had conventions and they might have had ways of doing things, but I think to infer strict rules when you know comparatively little about, okay, you can see that things were normally done this way, but that does not say people had rules socially. That was just my picky point on that.
Picky, Mr. Slightly.
Picky. I'm picky. Call me picky.
I thought I was the party pooper. No, but I hear what you're saying, because it's I can see it on both sides, because if you don't say anything, it can be quite dry. But at least if you say something, then it could be over the top. So I guess it's finding the right kind of wording, and the fact we are seeing this in what appears to be intentional deposition in that liminal space at the edge of the lake, whether that's rules as we know rules, or whether that's cultural tradition or social pressure, or something based on hunting law. It's bound to be one of those. I guess it's just word. What those words
I
mean
think,
to you.
that's it. But I that's why I think that when we put word into the public domain, I think we are duty bound to be careful, because people will read something and accept it as that whoever wrote this knows better. And I think, for example, if you're from a Christian household, devoutly Christian or religious household, you might say grace before it's a convention. It's not a rule. And I also think that if this was a situation where, if you were putting, say, one piece of bone or whatever per meal, maybe, it's like you were putting all remains of all the animals in this, in this thing. Or we would have found, there'd have been Coneyberry anomalies all over the place, where all manner of things were being buried in the same pit.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's careful choice of words, and on the other hand, I think we've got to allow people a certain certain amount of latitude.
Once it goes through a reporter, you've got no idea how that's going to turn out on the other side. So considering I don't think they've done too bad. And can I say, by the way, thank you, Katie Green. I've just seen your message that you've ordered a Neolithic axe head. I've got some nice axe heads lined up in the workshop, so one of them will be heading your way.
Fantastic.
Fabulous.
Fantastic.
Nice. Congratulations, Kate. Yeah. Okay, shall I move us on to the next thing, if I could find it?
Just let me catch one of these points here. Fetus said, when hunting in northern Canada, any scrap parts need to be hidden, mostly from bears. And you know what? It's a point to make that Britain back then, we had still bears. We had bears and lynx and Lord knows what other creatures over here. So, yeah, good point. Wolves.
Yeah. Okay,
and another one to go on that. I'll let you move on.
No, sorry. Another one to go on that, James. Sorry.
Yeah, the hunter-gatherer groups in Tierra del Fuego intentionally submerged meat to let the outside sort of rot in anaerobic conditions, so the interior would be good to eat. So it's whether they were doing that, we don't know, but it's a possibility that they were storing food as well.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay, as I say,
I'll let you move on.
I don't think so. Excavations reveal waterlogged remains from the Iron Age. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Archaeologists from MOLA, the Museum of London Archaeology, have uncovered Iron Age waterlogged remains during excavations in Bedfordshire, England. Not in London, as you said earlier. Bedfordshire. We were trying to work out later. We know
it was the University of London. That's why. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. The discovery was made during works for the National Highway's proposed A428 Black Cat to Caxton Gibbet Road. No, that is not the Whimsy.
I love that. No, that's not the Whimsy. No, Caxton Gibbet. Who knew?
That is such a brilliant name, though. I hope I know folks over the other side of the Atlantic really enjoy our place names, but knowing that Black Cat and Caxton Gibbet are actual places, that's got to make it worth something, hasn't it? Anyway, the team found Iron Age wooden objects preserved in waterlogged ground for 2,000 years. So, same kind of thing, really, that's been going on at Must Farm, which we... is the term not anaerobic, is it? It's the conditions that preserve wood and other organic materials.
Yes, it is anaerobic, yes.
Ah, cool, yeah. The discovery is incredibly rare, but you wouldn't think so from the programme so far, having covered multitude of places where wood has been preserved in anaerobic conditions. Normally wood decomposes and is broken down. So we've covered a lot of that. Anyway, but excavations have found evidence of shallow wells for gathering water, with one well containing a perfectly preserved 2,000-year-old wooden ladder. Like it. Pity, missing the bucket, perhaps. The team have also discovered wattle panels, woven twigs and branches covered with daub, which was made out of materials such as mud, crushed stone and straw or animal hair to line the well, in addition to small posts and pieces of timber. They said we can learn a lot from these wooden objects, as well as being able to see how people made and used them during their daily lives. Finding out what type of wood they used would tell us about the trees which grew in the area. This can help us reconstruct how the landscape would have looked at the time and how the landscape changed through history. And that was a bit of it, I think, that excited you more than anything, wasn't it, Rupert? Through this kind of preservation, being able to reconstruct what the landscape was up to at the time, because that's usually a huge missing. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of that mystery away. When you get a situation like this where, it's exciting enough when timbers get preserved, but when you got 2,000-year-old wattle and daub preserved, including all the things that they mixed with the mud, can't call it plaster, but so whether it's animal hair that's been mushed into that to make it stronger, but then with the rest of the stuff, I'm looking at this list here of what they're intending to be analysing here, which is the insects and seeds and plants and pollen grains, which are all preserved in the site as well. That is going to tell you an awful lot about what the landscape looked like, especially the insects. I'm very excited to see what else comes out of these excavations.
It's going to be an interesting site, and I like that they've got the reconstruction there as well. I don't know if you saw that, of what the site looks like, with they had some grassy patch. If you go back on it, you can cover me up if you wish.
Okay, it may be a different article. I can't see. There's a.
No, it was on that article. You scroll right past it.
It wasn't this article.
It was. Yeah.
I've got some men in high vis, and I've got a ladder.
If you go to the one that's got some grassy patches, I think they've got some reconstructed dwellings on there. They had some prices on them for some reason.
Oh no, those are garden. In the ad. Well, I'm really confused now.
I feel like this has just gone on. Yeah, those ones. Yeah. As some people have said, I quite like the 15,000. I'm just gonna note that down. Iron Age style. Yeah, it does look like a little ladder on the side. Yeah.
That ladder, the real ladder. There we are.
That definitely went on
crazy,
too long.
Man.
But interestingly, that ladder, I think, I will check, but that might be the oldest ladder that we have of a composite style in Britain, because we've got older ladders that are just solid pieces of wood with steps cut into them. But I think that's the oldest ladder with rungs in Britain.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that from that age. Yeah.
In Britain? No, not in Britain, no. I think the oldest ladder I know about was they found a ladder at, it wasn't Göbekli Tepe, was it Karahan Tepe? They found a preserved ladder. Oh, no, actually, it was Catalhoyuk. It's still in Anatolia anyway. So you're talking about like a 9,000-year-old ladder still preserved. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Or everything in Britain is always later, but we'll hang on to small victories.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're quite right to point out the difference between that kind of a ladder and, there are lots of ladders which are carved out of a single trunk or something like that, where you've got wedge-shaped bits cut out.
Yeah.
And we believe there's a a piece of wood been retrieved from an Irish bog that has been interpreted as an idol, like the Shigir idol. But we were there. We were there. There's a replica of it at the museum there. And we're going, no, that's a ladder. It's not God.
Idol.
That's a ladder, mate.
Yeah, I know. And they're trying to
ladders.
say that it's some ritual thing. No, it is. It's a ladder. It's a ladder. I am going to tell you a momentary digression because the names were so exciting to begin with of Cax Gibbet. That Caxton actually is derived from Anglo-Saxon, and it's Car is an Anglo-Saxon settler, and town obviously is a town, Cax town. So it's an Anglo-Saxon settlement. Some description, and a gibbet, obviously, a gibbet is a site of public execution. So it's a great name for a town, isn't it?
Or wherever it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And talking of wattle and daub, I can't help but be reminded that I'm surrounded by wattle and daub here. My house here is 500 years old, dates to 1509. And it is extraordinary when you look back at even Iron Age construction. It's not that far removed, at heart, this place I'm in. So I feel very privileged. Not that I'm going to be able to dig into the walls here and discover what the wattle and daub has been made of. I don't think there's actually much of it, much of the wattle and daub left, but it is here. It is here, but I don't think I'll be able to go, sink a test trench in it or whatever I do.
If it was made of animal dung, it would be scratch and sniff. Sorry, that was dreadful.
That was dreadful. Yes. No, I won't try that at home. No. Let's move on. What have we got? We've got 10,500-year-old Stone Age hunter-gatherer settlement found in England. Team of archaeologists from the University of Chester and Manchester have discovered a Stone Age hunter-gatherer settlement during excavations. No, we've done that.
I was going to say
the same
something,
one?
but I thought, yeah.
No, quite right.
Yeah,
No.
We've done that. There's James and me thinking, oh Christ, have we missed something?
No, no, it's me. Unearthing the archaeological passing of time at Lagash, a site in southern Iraq. Actually, that headline rather belies, I think, the main headlines that the mainstream media have picked up on around this. But we like this article because for other reasons, although it includes the reason for the headlines in the mainstream media. Let me just adjust that so the text comes in. There we go. And I don't know where to begin with this because it's quite a long article. I don't want to sort of read it all. I mean, can we, between us, Rupert, kind of praise what it's about?
In terms of keeping it reasonably light, because we could talk about this for ages because it's such an important site.
Number one, where is Lagash? Number one, where is Lagash?
It's in Iraq.
Yeah.
And what are you asking me to be more specific than that?
Well, no, just so people get a picture. I mean, I haven't got a map.
Maybe I have. If you want me to be more specific,
on the
this might help.
Well, southern
Okay.
the
red
thing,
there is Baghdad.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, the Persian Gulf, which you're looking at there, the sea levels, the sea levels were completely different, and in fact the bay, if you like, the land around the Persian Gulf today is 150 miles away, roughly, from where it was back then. That the sea level was much further north.
Yeah. So Lagash is that's gone horribly wrong. Let me bring us back.
It's not that far from Baghdad, put it that way.
Yeah. What is that in the middle? Oh, I know. No, I don't know. But but Lagash is about here. That's right. Yeah, between Baghdad and the what is now the Persian Gulf.
I think so. You said I'm not wearing the right
yeah,
glasses.
forgive me. I didn't mean that to be so much of a distraction, but geography is quite important. Getting a sense of places.
Well, the important thing about this is that it's a huge site. They call it a settlement, but it's 3 miles long by a mile wide. I mean, it's colossal. But as I said, they've known about this for a while. They've been excavating.
It's bigger than present-day Scarborough, isn't
it? Yeah, it's significantly. But what's so fantastic about this particular development for me is that they have found, bearing in mind the time that we're talking about here,
which we haven't mentioned so far, Rupert.
We're talking about 5,000-6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And they have found. Essentially, it's an open air restaurant. It's a dining place. It's they've even found storage vessels that still have got food in them. And now I haven't read through.
I'll read it. What surprised the researchers most was the large tavern they uncovered, complete with benches, a type of clay refrigerator called a zir, an oven, and the remains of storage vessels, many of which still contained food. Tantalisingly, they don't mention which food, or do they know which food? It's surprising it's not mentioned.
No, it's all going to be in the source paper. Which, I mean, this article was quite long enough, and I haven't read the actual research paper yet because that's even longer. But,
it's a public eating space dating to somewhere around 2700 BCE, says Pittman, a professor in Penn's History of Art Department, curator of the Penn Museum's Near East section, and the Lagash project director. It's partially open air, partially kitchen area, so you can go to these kinds of places nowadays, can't you, in the right place and the right climate?
Totally.
I'm thinking about
we haven't changed a bit.
No, yeah. Which is wonderful. By the way, it's Holly Pittman. I think there's a photograph of her down here. Yeah, this lady is the excavation director. And it's a long article because it gets a bit biographical about the dig itself. And it's just a little bit of a testament. I mean, we don't, we try to sing the praises of archaeologists. And it takes people like this lady, Holly Pittman, full of personality and character to be able to drive these things. Because this whole excavation was interrupted by the Gulf War and wars twice and COVID. And yet still she's driving this thing, and inspiring a team of archaeologists, to get to work on this huge, huge project. You just think, okay, hats off to you, lady.
Yes,
or anybody that drives this kind of project. I can't emphasize enough. Apart from the tavern, that kind of says it all. You've got a proper town with streets, and what else have we got? We've got the clay ovens, the kilns going on around there. I'll just read this as well. Sorry, I'm going a bit backwards and forwards with this. The Lagash settlement runs about 3 miles from north to south and 1 mile across, making it one of the biggest archaeological sites in southern Mesopotamia. Just beneath its surface lies evidence that can help reconstruct the lives of everyday people during what's known as the early dynastic period, a 600-year stretch from 2900 to 2300 BCE, when some of the world's first cities found their form. And I don't know about you, because we're talking about around about the time that Stonehenge was going up over here. We've got no evidence of any of this kind of thing in northwest Europe. But time and time again, and I think in particularly in some of the things we're touching on tonight, is this evidence of not necessarily massive populations, but massive busyness of people going about their daily lives in ways that we would recognise. We always, I'm guilty of this, in thinking back or trying to imagine how people were living their lives, and it's mostly probably informed by the absence of evidence of lives in Britain. We've got their monuments and stuff like that, but scant little else. And so our imaginations rush in to provide evidence to imagine what their lives must have been like.
It's a lot to do with environment, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that we've commented on a number of times is that in Britain, as you just said, in Britain we're left with we've got burial sites and we've got the megalithic monuments, but we have got very few actual settlements, like Must Farm that James mentioned earlier, and Starcar. We've got a few, but you go over to Eastern Europe and then carry on going east. And in fact, there's another article we'll be talking about shortly, where the excavations actually include like 300 houses. Maine is another country in particular where archaeologists are dealing with, and I can't even say villages, it's more like towns, that they've excavated 100 houses here and 150 houses over there and 80 over there. We just don't get this in Britain. And clearly that's partly to do with building conventions, the practices themselves, and then to do with environment. So it is exciting when you find signs of people's lives, how people were existing on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to the things that they ritually left behind. You get a very different picture of humanity when you go to places further east.
Lagash is mentioned in the Gilgamesh legend, isn't it? Says Jez.
Is it Jez? I didn't know that.
We'd have to ask that question back, actually. Yeah. Of course, we shouldn't be touching because we're getting into history now. It's obvious if it's in Gilgamesh, it's in.
well, it's the hinterland, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But as I say, the exciting thing for me is the possibility of looking at this and extrapolating that maybe if we went back, that we would recognise some of the ways that they were living their lives better. We'd be able to relate to them better than we actually think we could. I don't know. It just brings everything a bit closer, that's all.
Yeah. I think it's not quite just to say that, we would definitely recognise it's not quite as old, but and it's beyond prehistory. It's nasty Romans, but I really like seeing, or never been, would love to, but pictures of the fast food bars in the likes of Pompeii and Herculaneum.
Of course,
going to Naples today, and they have exactly the same layout. They are no different, really, and it's particular situations like that have not changed. There is a style of commerce or interactions that just have not changed and never will. I mean, take the ladder from earlier; that hasn't changed. So there will be those particular snippets that just will never change.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is your camera on autofocus, James? It just seems to have slipped.
That's. I think I'm due a new camera. Sometimes it can be a bit. Sometimes you hand back and forth. It's I'm a camera.
Well done. Yeah. Is it a Panasonic by any chance?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. We could go into a conversation about phase detect and contrast detect autofocus, couldn't we?
Other
do you know what? Let's not.
Let's not. I'm going to move us along. Yeah?
I should.
It's getting exciting now.
Yeah.
Headless skeletons in a settlement trench. A 7,000-year-old mass grave, question mark. Okay. And this is where we get into difficulties. Because...
Is it?
No. During this year's excavation in Vrable, I think that's right, Vrable, Slovakia, archaeologists from the Collaborative Research Centre of Kiel University and the Archaeological Institute of the Slovak Academy of Sciences came across a spectacular find. The remains of 38 individuals were found in a ditch surrounding the settlement of Vrable, I presume. Their well-preserved skeletons were jumbled together, and all of them were missing their heads, with the exception of a young child. How and when and why these people's heads were removed are central questions for future investigations. Already last year, the team had uncovered headless skeletons there. We assumed to find more human skeletons, but this exceeded all imaginations, reports project leader Professor Dr. Martin Furholt. So we're talking again, just I'll come back to include us all here a bit. Did you got a take on where this is again geographically? I think it's sort of northern. Oh, in Slovakia, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But we are in the realm of the linear band ceramic, or the LBK, and it's like the dreadful biker gang, the LBK. Whenever it comes to violence or nasty goings on and the application of violence of human on human, LBK seems to be the first people that come up. Obviously, they weren't a gang. There was a whole vast, a fairly unified culture that covered a vast area of northern Europe and the Danube Valley, round about 6,000, 5,000 BC.
Yeah, 5,000 really.
Yeah, but as I say, their name always seems to come up, and we'll be mentioning it again. Probably it won't be the last time we'll be mentioning it. Anyway. So
again, I don't think we've changed a jot, you see, because we've got all this violence in prehistory. But I'm always shocked. I might sound like I'm going off on one, but I just think people are the same. That we're very lucky in our sort of privileged, developed world that we're sufficiently comfortable that we tend not to get that angry. But when you look at some of the road rage examples that go on, where ordinary people just lose it, and when you're talking about a period in history where there probably weren't huge ramifications of just being sufficiently annoyed with somebody that you stave their head in, I still don't think we've changed very much at all, if at all.
Yeah. It's all a matter of circumstance. I think you're probably saying, let me just read a little bit more of that. The site was one of the largest settlement sites of the early Neolithic in Central Europe, 4,950 it's saying here, so yeah, in that ballpark, and has been the research focus of the CRC for several years. The archaeological artifacts are associated with the linear pottery culture, LBK. As you said, 331 houses in 3 neighbouring villages were identified by geomagnetic measurements. Up to 80 houses were inhabited at the time, an exceptional population for this period. Yeah, we come to that. Great populations. We always imagine, or I imagine, I'll own it. You tend to imagine sparse populations because we can't see much today, but they were. So the southwestern of the 3 settlements was surrounded by a 1.3 kilometre long double ditch and thus separated from the others. Some areas were reinforced with palisades, which should not be interpreted as a defensive structure, but rather as a boundary marking of the village area. So in the excavations of summer of 2022, they discovered the remains of at least 38 individuals spread over an area of about 15 square meters, which isn't very much. One on top of the other, side by side, stretched out on their stomachs, crouched on their sides, on their backs with their limbs splayed out. The positions of the skeletons does not suggest that the dead were carefully buried. Rather, the positions suggest that most of them were thrown or rolled into the ditch. So there's... I'll put it full screen because it's, yeah. Well,
that's a hell of a mass grave, isn't it? I mean, it's
yeah.
The fact that all their heads were removed is, don't need to dwell on that, do we? Really, it's all you need to say.
Well, is it? You see, because I think they're conjecturing that this is not necessarily this is not necessarily one brutal act, nor indeed an act of deliberate violence of one group upon another. That it is more a way of treating the dead or certain sections of the dead. These people may already have been dead when their heads were removed. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of them having been decapitated whilst alive. So beyond that, you can't go, but it's not for sure.
Except that, one thing I will toss in here is, do you remember we did a piece a year or so ago about a site in Siberia, which I grant you is a little bit further to the northeast, but where they had the practice was to encase skulls with clay. They reformed.
That's in our 10 weirdest
of
things.
Individuals.
That's in our 10 weird things you didn't know about. Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting this is a similar thing. What I'm saying is that clearly there was something about treating heads in a given way. That it does seem to be a thing. It's difficult to even try to interpret it. Because, this far down, you're talking about 7,000 years ago, Lord knows what would have been going through people's minds then. But it does seem, I tell you the thing that is most, it's like it's waving a flag, but you don't know how to interpret it, is that all those bodies had the heads removed except for one child.
Yeah. And the mind can go all sorts of places, which tends to skew it.
I'd want a bigger
mind.
Sample, though.
Sorry?
A bigger sample.
I'd ideally want a bigger sample. If there were more kids' remains in there that still had their heads, then that would be more representative. I mean, that could be anything, unfortunately. It's a really interesting site for a whole variety of reasons. And touch on one of the questions, or one of the points that's already flicked. Jez asked about how messy it would be to decapitate someone with stone tools. Not that I've tried it, but I would imagine. I'll just get that out there. I would imagine
experimental archaeology. What are the boundaries?
Yeah. Is this recorded? Is this? But yeah, it would be incredibly messy. So it's not as if you could have people head on the block, axe come down, heads falls. You just couldn't do it. And I note in the article that it was talking about the I think it's the thoracic vertebrae were quite well preserved, and it appears as if the heads were carefully cut, which, in whichever context you took, whether they were doing it violently because this was a group that they've just killed, or because it was a loved family member that they, based on cultural tradition, they had to remove the heads and do something else with the heads, you're going to get the same result. So from their suggestion that it might not be violence, I think they're jumping to conclusions too quickly there. But I guess looking at the linear ceramic as a general is quite interesting, because we've seen, as you said, these various different sites. There are loads of people, loads of houses with exactly. And you go over to the likes of Spien and around there, massive flint mining sites, all linear ceramic, and then you get to Britain and you don't see it. and that's you seem to get that sort of Iberian Atlantic impact that seems to jump over to Britain. I've often wondered whether we don't get these large-scale early Neolithic settlements with clear signature of either side, whether it be linear ceramic or an Atlantic Neolithic, because you have the two coming together, and there's just that lack of social and cultural cohesion that could allow a big group to occur, because these different ideas and different people come in. It's just so fragmented. You're trying to put jigsaw pieces together where you either don't have all the bits, or you're trying to bring two jigsaw puzzles together from separate boxes.
It's a really good one. It's a question we're going to have to address when it comes to making the episodes that deal with it in Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. I think it'll be episode 4 roundabout. It's which end of Europe do the real megalithic influences come from? Who were the people? Were they from the east or were they from the south? Yeah. Deal with that, because I don't know that anybody has so far. It seems it's a sort of question that would have been answered, but
I have my opinions on that, but this is not the place to be airing them, I think, or we'll be here all night again.
Yeah, that's an episode in itself.
Indeed.
So I mean that is the final block of this thing: massacre, headhunters, or peaceful skull cult. They can't seem to make up their minds either. Yeah. Okay. Let us move along. Oh, hello. Just one second. I'm just checking something. Cause you talk amongst yourselves a moment, because
what are you doing now? So I thought you jumped one there. Surely we're talking.
This is rather the point. I'm getting to it. All right. Hard time do not me give.
How much time have we got to talk amongst ourselves? Can we unravel the early Neolithic into Britain in that time, or are we talking not even that? No, I don't care about what we've talked about. You've won me over. Don't scroll down too quick. That's it.
Yes, it is this. So
not the
you can
Netflix. It's
rather than me read this. Actually, first of all, James, why don't you tell us all about Obsidian, just itself?
Okay. So Obsidian, I guess you could consider a natural glass. It's very similar to flint in that it can be flaked predictably. But where flint is actually a sedimentary rock, it has its own category of biosedimentary. Obsidian is very much igneous. It comes from volcanic activity. You get lots of different types of obsidian. And if you're from the US, you may have come from or recognize lots of different types of obsidian. You get a black obsidian, mahogany obsidian, rainbow, a whole mixture. But the main thing, the takeaway about obsidian is that despite it being a stone and used in the Stone Age, it is the sharpest material on the earth. Surgical steel can be cut to about 2 to 3 molecules thick at the blade. Importantly, that it can be cut to that thickness. Obsidian, when it's flaked and detached, can be 1 molecule thick at the blade. There's nothing sharper.
Flaming
that we know of.
How can you possibly get sharper than 1 molecule? Oh my goodness.
Half a molecule.
Yeah. So
I mean that. So yes.
So the point is, if you'll forgive the slight pun, that reporting on the latest findings from the Melka Kunchura archaeological site in Ethiopia, a team of researchers has described the discovery of an obsidian hand axe workshop within a layer of sediment dated to 1.2 million years ago. They say it here, they say it themselves. This represents a staggeringly early example of obsidian shaping, and according to the study authors, is the only hand axe factory ever dated to the early Pleistocene. What does it say? archaeological sites described as napping workshops are only recorded in the second half of the Middle Pleistocene and only in Europe so far, right? The researchers located prominently in France and the UK, the most notable Stone Age axe workshops are all associated with the creation of flint blades. So, anyway, before I go any further than that, your comment, gentlemen, please.
I just feel that I would happily toss this whole thing over to James, really, because it's for me the staggering thing about this is that if they've established that this was obsidian being worked in sufficient quantity to call it a factory, that these people were producing stuff, it was such a superb substance to use, if that's the right word, that they wanted to use it, they wanted to have it in sufficient quantity. See, we've got no idea how many people we're talking about here, whether it would be distributed far and wide, or if it's just a group of people who wanted to make it in sufficient quantity that they didn't have to keep bothering with remaking tools. They just had stock. Vast stock. That was my take on it. Anyway, what do you think, James?
And it's interesting, and it'll be good where they look at some of the other Middle Pleistocene sites elsewhere. That's quite interesting, because the key thing about this site is that, the obsidian's great, it's very sharp, lots of hand axes, but it's from the earlier side of the Middle Pleistocene, whereas the likes of Boxgrove, UK, various other hand axe workshops or factories, they are from the latter end of the Middle Pleistocene. So the fact that people were making uniform shaped, sized hand axes this early is really interesting, because it suggests that either there's some kind of social or cultural tradition, dare I say, for such an early site, that's pressurizing people into making these hand axes. And I'm not saying that there's a foreman there to say, that's a pointed hand axe, snap that in half at once. But that's the right way to make a tool. People are not just detaching flakes as and when. They have a set shape in mind and a set process to go about it. That involves the extra planning that you see in flint napping, and for such an early site, that is really interesting. Whether it's a big group making one or two lots of hand axes, or one or two people making lots of hand axes, we will never know. I'll probably never know. Whether they're storing hand axes, go on.
Just the numbers, I know may be useful to mention here. The team came across an ancient layer of sediment containing a cache of 578 stone tools, all but 3 of which were sculpted from obsidian. And they say, we show through statistical analysis that this was a focused activity, that very standardized hand axes were produced, and that this was a stone tool workshop, they write. So without doing a deep dive into their statistical analyses, and whatever the methodology they were using, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, they're not massive numbers. It sounds a big number, but I think from Boxgrove they had around 300 hand axes. But when you look at the likes of Swanscombe and around the Blue Water Shopping Centre, all the gravel pits around there, you're talking tens of thousands of hand axes.
Yes,
but that's just because it's...
Boxgrove, we're talking approximately 500,000 years ago, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the end of the Middle Pleistocene, and that's the thing. The distance between the Boxgrove in the Lower Paleolithic is closer to today than Boxgrove is to the Obsidian factory. That's the crazy thing about it, and they're still ovate hand axes. It's just mad amounts of time.
Can you speak rather than reading from the article, James? Can you speak to the levels of skill and the health and safety issues of working with obsidian? Because, well, seriously. These, I presume they didn't have, were not wearing gloves or eye protectors.
Well, definitely not. I say definitely, but probably not eye protection. But if you're a fairly competent napper, it's very unusual to get flakes coming upwards. Okay. Because the way that you if you've got your obsidian, I'll show you the edge. If the force is coming downwards onto the edge, then most of that force is going to detach and follow through. If you hit the edge too flat or too obliquely, it's just going to blow the edge and it's going to go everywhere. And that's where potential problems could occur. So I suppose it's a good opportunity to perhaps pick out where younger members of the group might be coming into the equation of making stone tools, because for any of you guys, to partly answer the other question, I'm pretty certain that if I sat with almost any of you for a day, maybe even less, I could get you making a hand axe. And
we can vouch for that.
That's not a boast. That's because the level of skill and understanding required is.
It seems like magic on the surface of it, but when you get the idea,
definitely, it's notable, but not massive. Not massive at all. Once you have the basic understanding of how to use the tools, if you've got people around you, it's not it's not that challenging at all.
Can I just
go on?
No, I mean, it's just sidebar, just addressing a couple of things in the chat. I just wanted to say thank you to Andy McGeechan, who's given us a super chat donation. It says, Obsidian, stuck in the Paleolithic, can't get my head around all these newfangled stone circles. Quite right, bless you. Another thing, I don't know. I can't guarantee, answering a question I think Fetus asked about the chat being available in the recorded version. Essentially, because I don't want people having to wade through the pre-show, I always cut off the first bit of this show, so the recorded one doesn't include the pre-show. Unfortunately, a consequence of that is that we do lose the live chat, so the live chat is not available. Although I'm not certain about that. I'm sure I have taken bits off and the chat has remained, but don't expect the chat to be here in the recorded version is what I'm saying. Don't rely on it. Okay. And a couple of others.
Also,
Amber's given us...
Amber, thank you, Amber. That's very, very kind of you. And Aras as well. Thank you so much.
Great stuff. You're kind people.
You are lovely people. And yes, it will put to good use.
Certainly. Sorry to interrupt there. I just wanted to address those before they got lost.
No, definitely before they, as you say, before they get lost. It's hand axes are, and the Lower Paleolithic is a really interesting time period, and being brutally honest about it, it's also not. And I appreciate that That may sound like fighting talk for me, who did a PhD on Upper Paleolithic. But the problem I find with it is that, particularly for the Lower Paleolithic, this site is a fantastic example of the Lower Paleolithic being represented by a load of hand axes and nothing more. You can't you can't tell much more about it. Yes, you can start to look at the morphometrics of hand axes and what that tells you, and you can start to look at the occasional instance where you might get a scatter of flakes that haven't moved. But that still only tells you that people moved and they made similar tools and they made hand axes there. Trying to infer much more than that starts to get extremely speculative very, very quickly. And I appreciate a lot of prehistory is quite speculative and is constantly changing, but the Lower Paleolithic is an exception to that. And that's why, particularly for hand axes, they are just banged about as this ultimate thing. And they are great tools, but trying to unlock the world and the mindset around the production of the hand axe and how it fitted into we'll just never know. We'll never know.
Well, either the authors or the writer of this article fall into the trap. They say the emergence of such abilities marks a surprisingly massive cognitive leap for such an ancient group of humans. I call bullshit. It's a massive cognitive leap for people that have made assumptions about people
I think
capabilities
was
of ancient
surprised
groups of
enough
people.
that the Acheulean axe remained unchanged for 1,000,000 years, didn't it? So where do you place cognitive leap? You could say that if something remained unchanged for 1,000,000 years, there was no cognitive leap until somebody said, "Hold on, I can do something better than that." 1,000,000 years is a long time to rest easy with a design, I think.
Yeah, and does that speak to the fact that it's a tool that does the job? It's not very time consuming to make. For those Obsidian hand axes, they probably would have been less than 30, maybe even 20 minutes to make from river cobble of obsidian. Very, very quick, very disposable, first throwaway society, maybe. I know that's a bit of a push. But making huge leaps off the back of the likes of hand axes, it does start to get a little bit vague. And if you've got particular tool types that work for a long period of time, why would you change it? You need that kind of input to encourage change, whether it be climate change or that, I feel like I've said it several times, but social pressure or whatever, that encourages that change, because otherwise people will be unsure and unwilling to change. And you look at Neanderthals after the Acheulean that moved away from hand axes to go to Levallois prepared core technology. And in Europe, they went back to hand axes before they went extinct. And that says says to me that the hand axe is a really good tool, which then goes back to your Middle Pleistocene when they didn't change very much because they're great tools and they're quick to make. You don't need anything more than that. But trying to pick apart the lives of did they trade them? Was someone a hunter and they couldn't nap, so they did this and they did that? We don't know. We just don't know.
Very good. Let us move on to our next item.
Lovely.
What we've dug up between us. Actually, I have to say, to be fair, we do sort of between us. I think, Rupert, you dig up most of the stuff we find, and I sort of fill in at the edges. That's what a fine job you do too.
I get feeds coming from all over the place, and my morning ritual first thing in the morning is reading through what's been published in the last 24 hours or couple of days. It's crazy what's out there. So, there's an awful lot of stuff we don't include, I have to say.
Yeah, this is nice.
It is nice.
Citizen scientists discovered more than 1,000 new burial mounds. It's brilliant. It's an example of crowdsourced investigation, really, coming up trumps. Where are we now, Rupert?
We're in Holland now. We're in Utrecht.
Utrecht.
You practiced this, haven't you?
Yes. Over the past few years, citizen scientists from the Heritage Quest project have scoured the entire Veluwe, I believe that's pronounced, and Utrecht Heuvelrug areas. I won't say that again. Well, probably will have, because it's mentioned lots in the article. Areas for unknown archaeological heritage. One of the results of the research has been the number of known burial mounds in this area has doubled. Heritage Quest. It's a citizen science project that Dutch archaeology had taken on, in which people working at home on their computers could, I don't know what sort of mapping software or whatever they're using.
They 6,500 people involved in this.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic team effort. It really is.
Yeah. And they identified thousands of potential archaeological objects, such as burial mounds, and the range we're talking about is quite, I see, from quite early, middle, late Neolithic to very early Iron, late
almost
Bronze.
Iron Age,
yeah. Celtic fields, prehistoric field complexes dating from the Bronze Age, and charcoal kilns. So it says the research wouldn't have been possible without the tremendous efforts of the volunteers and without the help of the citizen scientists. It may have taken us archaeologists 10 years to arrive at the same results. So it looks like a very pretty area. It's a national park, isn't it? You said, Rupert.
It is a national park. Yes, it is. Yeah.
In
I
Holland.
can't remember how big it is. It's quite extensive.
Yeah. Well, it would have to be, really. I mean, for them to discover 1,000 extra burial mounds.
Yeah. Well, and it has to be said that's a conservative estimate. They think there might be significantly more than that, but they're confident on 1,000.
Well, they've taken a good sample. They've taken soil samples from 300 of the supposed mounds, and they've confirmed that what people are finding at home on their on their desks are actually in the burial mounds, which is a wonderful thing. I don't think there's apart from the fact of this, there's a lot much more to take in, except that again it sort of feeds into the thing of ubiquity and density of goings on and how busy people were living their lives.
Yeah. Eternally the words Sarah Griffiths ringing in my ears. Stuff happened in the past. Get over it. People everywhere. One of the things that I really liked about this this piece of work, though, is that another feature that they found were cart tracks. And
yes.
And I find it, once again, so burial mounds, yeah. But as soon as you've got cart tracks, this is people living again, and it's amazing how sophisticated. You're going back into the Bronze Age and potentially earlier, and it's amazing how sophisticated.
Shall I show the folks a picture of a very old cart?
Have you got the picture of that?
Bearing in mind that it's from a very different part of the world, but
it is. Yeah, this is from Armenia actually, but that is a 4,000-year-old wagon, and it's so well preserved because it was found at the bottom of a lake.
Mind blown.
Yeah,
would pass
4,000-year-old
emissions
wagon.
tests.
So what'd you say?
Would pass emissions tests.
Yeah. Although
not sure about the MOT though.
Whatever was pulling
Yeah. Yeah, the story from the Netherlands is an interesting one. I was part of a project that was using that Augurin mapping surveying to just drive, because it was all sand there. It's all sand there. You can literally just push a straw straight into the ground.
My goodness.
It's so soft. But for all those burials, they have nothing in them, sadly. Absolutely nothing. I was part of an excavation near Ghent that was these very sandy Bronze Age burial mounds, and for the archaeologists they said, don't even bother troweling, use your shovel just to keep skimming through the sand, because if you hit anything or feel anything through the shovel handle, it might be a something, but don't expect any artifacts. And we just go through burial mound after burial mound. There's nothing left. Sometimes apparently they get a body shadow, and that's it.
Wow.
Goodness gracious. All right. Well, I think that was that one, wasn't it? Now here's the thing. Yeah. This is something Rupert and I do not do very often. Would you believe it? We're going to Egypt.
Yeah, we don't. We should qualify that. I said at the top of the show, really, that the whole point about Egypt is that
James is shaking his head.
Really, and what makes it the reason something has to be significant for us with Egypt is, when something is significantly different, that we'll bring it up. And the other thing that we might use Egypt for is, and it's one of the things that I find really tantalizing, is that when you've got Egyptian history, it's at the same time as you've got prehistory in an awful lot of the rest of the world. So when you've got something that the Egyptians during their written records were trading with people who are prehistoric people, then, you know, maybe you can find out a little bit about these prehistoric people by finding out what the Egyptians said about what they did. That's why this has come into tonight's show. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly stunning or remarkable about it. I mean, it's for us, it's just dipping the toe, really. And I think some of the comments that we may make are more around the political and sidebar implications of this. So, Egypt. Egypt, by which we mean Zahi Hawass. Egypt unveiled Thursday a gold-laced mummy and 4 tombs, including of an ancient king's secret keeper discovered in the Saqqara necropolis south of Cairo. The vast burial site at the ancient Egyptian capital Memphis, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is home to more than a dozen pyramids, animal graves, and old Coptic Christian monasteries. Archaeologist Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former antiquities minister, announced the latest discovery dating from the 5th and 6th dynasties around the 25th to 22nd centuries BC to reporters at the dig site. There's the details. We've got some wonderful statuary there. Fetex, was he the supervisor guy?
He was a judge. He was a judge and writer who worked for. Lovely that we can say that. Worked for Pharaoh Pepi the First.
Yeah.
They were actually some of the largest statues ever found in that area. So I don't know why this chap.
So even though we can see people in there, it's difficult to get a sense of scale of those. But anyway, there they are. So and down a 15-meter shaft, which that's pretty deep. But then we're in Egypt, so nothing really should.
They didn't do anything by halves, did they?
No. The expedition also found a large limestone sarcophagus that had remained sealed just as the ancient Egyptians left it 4,300 years ago, Hawass said, yes. Not hyping things up at all. Inside was a mummy featuring a gold leaf covering that belonged to a man named Hekashepis. According to Hawass, who described it as one of the oldest and most complete non-royal mummies ever found in the country.
Rich dude.
Yes. There's Hawass, and there's. Oh, I see. No, you can see they're not that big. Those statues, are they? Really, in the great scheme of things.
No, but nevertheless, the largest that they found, I suppose. Because I mean, statuettes typically found in Egyptian stuff. They're kind of you can't see me, can you? They're they're only like a foot tall. Is kind of normal for Egyptian statuary in tombs.
Yeah.
So these are pretty big.
Yeah, I think does the article goes on to mention critics of the way that antiquities are dealt with in Egypt, and particularly by
they did, which
Mr. Hawass himself. But
I got a bit ranty about that because I'm not a huge fan of Zahi Hawass because I was about to say something really mean. He's a bit of a self-publicist. But the thing is that this has all been criticised as being, that it's overtly for the tourist industry. And the thing is that, but that's what you need to do. Particularly you're talking about Egypt, which not only are they suffering, they're having huge economic problems as a country, and when you think that everything that is ancient Egypt is, I mean, that's what percentage of Egyptian GDP? It's significant.
Yeah.
And so what they're planning on doing with these latest, they've got a new visitor centre planned to be opening soon is it the Valley of the Kings? It's
Oh,
one of the
right.
key
Okay.
places anyway.
Yeah.
It might actually be on the Giza Plateau, but the thing is, they are planning to more than double the tourist intake per year. And I think no, absolutely go for it, because in exactly the same way as they can criticize the bling, and that they're bringing people, because what they're saying is, well, they should be doing more academic, serious academic research. But the thing is that it's the tourist stuff that actually pays for that. And I think criticizing the bling is a nonsense when you think that how much we were singing the praises of the British Museum when they did the World of Stonehenge exhibition. That James had some stuff in it anyway.
Yeah.
But that the whole point is that it's the bling that people go for. The artifacts, it's all very well being able to do the analysis and look at strontium and tell you this, that, and the other.
It's so important as far as archaeology is. Yeah, it's so important as far as archaeology and stuff like that. It is that there is such a thing as gateway drugs, for people's interest and genuine support of archaeology, if not actually becoming archaeologists themselves. That that you've got to see the peak of the iceberg above the water to even begin to look at it. And in some respects, this kind of thing is what it is, and you do have to. I take your point. Gort NZ said, Egyptian news, 2400 BC. We've just heard some heathens on a small island out west have stuck a few small stones on top of each other in a circle. Nah.
Yeah. What were they thinking? It's true. I'll tell you just as an aside, because I said something at the beginning of this article about Egyptian, trading with people around the place. We couldn't bring it into this. It was a news piece that only came in yesterday or today. But they've made a major new discovery in Egypt, that there's been this word that they have known from Egyptian texts for ages, like a century. They've known this word, and I can't remember what it is, OT or something. It's a short word anyway, and it's mentioned in relation to embalming, but nobody knew what it was. And this new discovery, they've found an embalming chamber, a room that was specifically one of the phases when they were embalming the bodies. And in this chamber, they found a whole load of ceramic vases, some of which had the word written on it. So they knew that this mysterious word, well, here it was what was in these vases. And they found out
Scarab
that this
beetles.
was... Pardon?
No.
Scarab beetles, flesh eating. Oh. As soon as you said embalming chamber, I had the 1999 The Mummy masterpiece in my head. Brendan Fraser, Rachel White. The whole picture was there. I was thinking, yes.
It's all come true.
Thank goodness.
This is what I'm into archaeology for. Come on.
Yes, but the thing is,
scarab beetles. Let's leave it there. Next piece.
They did an analysis of this substance, and they found that it is a mixture of animal fats, cedar oil, and juniper resin. And juniper resin comes from Southeast Asia, and that just opens a whole can of worms of, well, number one, how long did they take to establish that mixture, because they used it for a long time, that mixture was the best mixture. And then how long did it take them to discover that the juniper oil from Southeast Asia was better than any of the stuff that they had closer to home? It's huge. And they consistently imported this stuff from Southeast Asia. So whether it was being brought over by boat or by land, whether they were going and getting it, or it was traders who were it's just huge. I love it. Anyway, we'll do something about that piece soon.
Yes, it's in the sort of pipeline, isn't it? Jez says peanut butter. That was his fantasy of what's inside it.
Do you know? I'll tell you something that's a bit weird about this. And again, how much time did they spend practicing, researching, experimenting? That they had things like, they used beeswax on the stomach, and they used this substance for preserving the liver. They had clearly worked on so many bodies in different ways to figure out what was going to preserve different parts better than, so many different substances. Yeah, wow, that's an interesting way of dealing with dead, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, watch out for a special on this channel, folks. Coming your way in a couple of weeks, maybe, if you're lucky. Paul Schunbrun from Louisiana. He's down the road from Poverty Point World Heritage Site. Love to go there. He says, I wish we had guys like you on our side of the pond. Actually, you do have guys like us.
You do.
We had them on. That we did a sort of exchange interview with them, and I've forgotten the name of their outfit now. They do a podcast. I think their podcast is more general archaeology. It's not.
They cover all time frames, don't they? Oh, heavens above. You carry on. I'll check it out.
We'll carry on. You check on.
Andrew mentions that a baboon skull has been identified as being from Punt. Interesting thing about apes and monkeys from around the world being found in different places
where they shouldn't be.
Clearly having pets. I mean, there's even one. It wasn't at Newgrange. It was at Rathcrogan. It was one of the main Irish sites that they found an ape there that was clearly somebody's pet.
Anyway,
remembered. You carry on. Yeah.
Well, there's another little tidbit of information to store away from another day to wow you with. We're going up the Danube now, and to Lipinski Vir. Headline, uninspiring, farmers and foragers. But a village founded around 8,200 years ago on the banks of the Danube River in Serbia's Iron Gates Gorge. I'm going to pull you away, Rupert, from your investigations a moment, because we need to kind of set the scene a bit here about where we're at with Lipinski Vir. We are up the Danube, and look, I mean, it sounds so fantastic. The Iron Gates Gorge.
I was upset. I called Mike early in the morning to tell him I was upset because the Iron Gates. Now, I've had this in my head, archaeologically, I've had this in my head for years.
Episode 2 of Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. Up the Danube.
The Iron Gates, God, it's so evocative, isn't it? It's Game of Thrones. And I had in my head, there's me and Michael driving,
rowing up the Danube, mate.
But as we're going, and what do you find out? Do you know what the Iron Gates are? It's 2 hydroelectric dam plants. It's hydroelectric power plants on the Danube. That's what it is. It broke my heart. I had visions of, there's in the Victoria and Albert Museum, one of the exhibits is it's beautiful. These metal doors. It's actually timber underneath, but these metal doors, that every panel is engraved with these, it's just stunning. And I imagine, can you imagine that in iron? Because this is brass and gold. Can you imagine if that was iron? And that's how I imagined the iron gates, but huge. And,
I'm going to regret letting you go off on one there for a moment, aren't I?
Power plant.
Power plant, yeah. Anyway, Lipinski Vir is on the Danube. Just before I let this go, you want to log this, Rupert. So apart from Rathcrogan, Darach O'Toole says Barbary macaque fossils have been found in Ireland. Barbary macaque skeletons dating back 2,500 years have been uncovered in Ireland, which was discovered in Navan Fort.
Navan Fort, well done. That was the one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Thank you very much.
Great job.
Yes. Yes. Do you know what? There's a lot of the ancient sites. Do you know what? I'm gonna shut up.
I'll carry on. Anyway, back to where we were. Lipinski Vir has puzzled archaeologists ever since it was excavated in the 1960s. The community seemed to combine traits of local hunter-gatherer cultures of the Mesolithic period with traits of Neolithic farmers originating in Anatolia or Turkey and Greece. Some discoveries made in the village, such as trapezoidal houses and fish head figurines, dig the fish head figurines, were utterly unique to Lipinski Vir. Previous isotope analysis of skeletons uncovered at the site appeared to provide evidence that women from farming settlements in the south married into an established foraging community. This suggested that Lipinski Vir was a Mesolithic village originally, whose inhabitants transitioned to an agricultural way of life. However, new research by a team including archaeologist Maxime Bramy of Johannes Gutenberg University of Mainz raises the possibility that the village was settled by Neolithic farmers who accepted foragers and some of their practices into their community. Recent DNA analysis of 34 skeletons uncovered at the site shows that men, women and children with genetic profiles similar to those of Neolithic farmers from Anatolia were buried beneath homes at the site, while a few people whose DNA matches that of Mesolithic hunter-gatherers from Europe were buried in the periphery of the settlement. So new analysis of isotope data previously gathered from the remains shows that those with Neolithic heritage ate fish along with cultivated foods, while the foragers at the site seem to have remained on a Mesolithic diet consisting mainly of fish. What we think we see at Lipinski Vir is a settlement founded by farmers who later adopted some foraging practices, says Bramy, but foragers there did not become farmers. So just a little bit there, you may have seen that picture right at the top of the article there. That is laid bare the foundations of some of the houses in the settlement of Lipinski Vir. Obviously, we've got a fantastic visitor centre cover under there, and Rupert and I are looking forward to visiting that when we're filming for episode 2 of Göbekli Tepe Stonehenge. But this is on a sort of slight hillside, and looking, if you looked out to the right there, you'd be looking out onto the Danube. It's very close to the shore of the Danube. I think that's true to say. Yeah. Those images sink into your mind for a little bit. Very sort of almost the stuff of nightmares, don't you think? Oh.
I can't imagine that. You know what? That's
right on cue. Nicely done, sir.
That is worryingly good. Yeah.
But that's all there is to say about that, actually.
It is. Sorry. Once I get my grouchy hat on, I just go off on one.
Oh no.
But it's this whole thing about separating out hunter-gatherers and farmers, and there was a whole research paper done on Scandinavian pots that had been analysed. 2,000 pots, I think they analysed from a couple of hundred sites, and the analysis, their conclusions were that hunter-gatherers were exchanging with farming folk because they had found they'd found that the ceramics had actually contained dairy produce, and for me, it doesn't mean that they were that these were like dairy farming folk, which was their implication. You can have hunter-gatherers who've got a pet cow or a pet goat. That it's a leap that because the people have these images in their heads of some people do this and some people do that, and there's so much potential crossover. And so to have a settlement of people where both practices were going on,
if you were to base it just on that circumstantial evidence, with you there, but I think they've got genetics on their side in this case. And
they have
isotope analysis
on their side. It's the James talking about jigsaw puzzles. The picture that you can draw from that is, I think you got choices. I'm not saying there weren't different peoples. It's just how they integrated is my question, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's an hypothesis. I mean, they're quite.
It's still a wonderful site and a wonderful set of discoveries being made there.
Yeah, we'll sort it out when we get there. Okay.
Yeah, we will. I just want to say, Paul earlier on, where he said that he wished that there were people like us, bless you, people like us on their side of the pond. And actually, Ian Rosie said he picked it up straight away. It was the 7 Ages.
Seven
guys,
Ages, yeah, of course.
And he said it before I found it. It's the 7 Ages Research Associates. If you want to look for their channel on YouTube.
Yeah, three guys.
But they cover everything.
They're
from
young. They're young, Rupert. They're not like us at all. They're young.
That's true. They are. Yeah. They are young. Yeah. They've got a huge portfolio of programs on their channel.
Yeah. Oh, they've been going at it. Yeah, a huge number of podcasts. Shall we move on to the final item? Shall we move on to a bit of whimsy? Yeah.
Wow, we've got to the end already. Yeah. Yeah.
I think so. It is 10 to 10. Our time. James, do you know what this is?
I feel like this is the kind of thing that I would see in a local newspaper article that has the caption "Desperate Local Angle" to it. It's is it Stonehenge? Is it?
Yes.
If you say so, Michael.
I shall reveal.
If this has got an art fund grant, I'm going to be cross.
I don't think it has got a grant. Nevertheless, we're in the ballpark here. Simon Le Boggett suffered from kidney problems and underwent an operation to have several kidney stones removed. Now he has made a piece of art out of them, replicating a mini Stonehenge known as what? Kidney Stonehenge. The stones are to go on display at Sotheby's in London, Glasgow and Brighton and Hove, and are likely to become a big attraction.
With the one visitor that's there, according to the picture.
It's just priceless, this one.
And there it is.
Yes.
I mean, should we be making fun? I mean,
yes.
They will be part of an arts charity's outside Inhumanity exhibition. According to a spokesperson for the charity, the sculpture is intended to demonstrate the frailty of the human condition.
Oh, God.
Dear,
when I first went to Stonehenge as a kid, it just didn't look real. because you'd seen so many pictures of it, and you got there, and you were expecting this enormous thing that was just totally overwhelming. But you can only see it at a distance. When you're up close to it, it is overwhelming. But from a distance, it's not. I feel like this is the same thing. If you purely took it from the headline, you see the picture, or even worse, make the mistake of visiting it without seeing the picture. Imagine that disappointment 100-fold. Kidney Stonehenge, and it's 2 of them, maybe even 3, with 1 on the top. Stonehenge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're.
I'm sure it's very painful, but that's just not right.
I know. You've got to remember that some guy went through some a heck of a lot of pain for this,
to produce this sculpture.
Actually, the thing that impressed me was the fact that out of all the things that you could do with some little kidney stones, it's the fact that he thought of balancing them on top of each other to make a triathlon. I can't imagine that I would have looked at kidney stones that, and all the discomfort that they would have caused, and thought of Stonehenge as being I
wonder if he was thinking about it before they'd been removed. What will I do with these once I've removed them?
I don't know. You'd have to have a preconception of kidney stones, really, before. I don't.
Well, I mean, it looked like you'd had a few of them removed, so I guess so.
Yeah. Anyway, our deepest commiserations. Made the attraction from his own kidney stones to demonstrate the frailty of the human condition and the inevitability of our demise. You say tomato, I say
dear.
The demise of the human race. Has come, Michael Bott.
You heard it here, folks. First, yeah. Magical stuff.
Jeffrey Worth says the Iron Gates have been called that for much longer than the dam has existed. It's a famous gorge where the Danube breaks through the Carpathians.
Well, that's cheered Rupert up a bit then.
That potentially has cheered me up. So what is the Iron Gate aspect then? Because everything that I read about it, because I thought this can't be true, and so went reading, and it was the dams on either side. Oh, what? Anyway, you've made me. I've got to go and read some more. Then, obviously,
listen,
that'll make me happy.
Listen,
if it's. Yes.
Yeah. As Nigel Sadler says, and on that bombshell, I do think it's time to bring the evening to a close. I've had a jolly fine time tonight. Thank you very much indeed, you guys, and all you folks in the chat. I hope you found that fascinating. We've been all over the flipping shop, haven't we, with it tonight? Not only geographically, but in sort of subject matter and, perspectives,
Indeed.
you name it. Yeah.
Indeed.
Anything else you need to say, James, before we wrap up and say ta-ra for now?
I've got 2 questions. I promised I would answer that flew
Oh,
through
do so. Go for it. Go for it.
First,
yeah.
Kevin asked about stone axe halved, and what they would look like. And I'm going to nick the screen share, if I may. I don't know if I can put a request in for that. Oh, looks like I can.
Can you? You've got an option for screen share in your.
It looks like I have.
Excellent. Go for it.
Okay, I don't know if you can see this. I assume you might be able to see it.
Not right now, no. It's not coming through on your feed nor nothing.
It says sharing this tab to guest Ecamm Live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says it's sharing.
It's not coming through on your feed. Oh, wait a minute. What's that? Hold on. I'm going to assign it to your... No, I tell you what, I'm going to assign it to Rupert's feed, and then I can show it full screen. There you go. Right.
Okay, so this is a Neolithic axe and handle from Denmark that was recently found during tunnel cutting. It's early Neolithic. I think it was 6,500 years old, but they have it. That is exactly what a Neolithic axe handle would look like. They're quite finely crafted. They are generally made from straight-grained timbers, like ash or birch or fruit wood, sometimes intentionally made with a knot above and below the blade to prevent or reduce the chance of splitting, but never with glue or any kind of binding. I've addressed this in previous videos. You do not need glue or binding or anything, any of that kind of rubbish. It makes no difference to the axe handle. As long as it's a well-fitted socket for the blade, it will not come out because of a reverse momentum when you hit the tree. And it's as simple as that. And that's exactly how I make my axe handles.
Wonderful.
So we go. And for Graham,
thank you so much for that. Yeah.
That's all right. And for Graham, who asked about polissoirs or axe polishing stones, were they moved? There are so few axe polishing stones from Britain that are known about. It's very hard to say. There are a handful of very large ones. And some that are much smaller, portable, and they were probably moved about. But interestingly, if you go over to the world of Soskin in Gaul, there are a lot more polissoirs out there. You get to some areas of France, and every village seems to have one in the middle of the village. It's so strange compared to Britain, where we have so few. Were they moved about? Wow. It's probably based on the size of the rock, basically. If it's too heavy, probably not.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. You will come back and join us again, won't you, at some point, James? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I was going to say that Fionn Reynolds from Cardu has been in my inbox to say, "Oh, I'm watching the show," and I said, "Well, I'll ask the guys if they would consider coming to the solstice event at Brinkethley
brilliant.
In June.
Ask Fiona if she's forgiven us. Ask Fiona if she's forgiven us for the...
It's so nice to know that you're watching, Fiona, because we've actually mentioned you a number of times off and on and said, it'd be so nice to get you on.
Yeah.
Buzz me an email or something, because, we haven't had any direct communication for, it must be years. But yes, so it's nice to know you're there. Big hello.
And any opportunity to put the record straight about the pillar in the in Brinkethley. We haven't got time to fully go into that now. For those of you who know about, when we talked about the pillar in Brinkethley, it was Fionn who contacted me originally years ago that she'd been there with a geologist who was the person who actually recognised what it was and put an end to the mystery that we'd been trying to solve for years. That was Fionn. Excellent. Thanks again. Rupert, anything you need to say before we finish?
No, just appreciate everything, and thank you for the donations this evening, folks, as well. Much appreciated, and it will all go to your filming fund. So thanks very much.
And guys, I mean, bless you, and thank you for those who've given us super chats and all. But for funding, the best way to fund the film itself is through the Buy Me a Coffee campaign, because then Google or YouTube don't take their cut, which is quite considerable if it's a super thanks or a super chat. So not for a moment downplaying your generosity, but the best way is the Buy Me a Coffee campaign. Link in the description below. Nigel says, "Don't forget to buy the guys lots of coffee." That's what just reminded me to say say that.
Let's get that's the wrong way. That was dreadful. Try it again. Let's get these guys.
Nice try.
These guys to GÖBEKLI TEPE. So do
thank you so
them,
much.
Buy them several coffees.
Indeed. To which end, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, James. Thank you, Rupert. Well, we can't see you every day. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Next Thursday in the month. Don't know which date that is in March, but watch out for it. I'll give you a fair warning and put it that way. All right. More to come, but in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with a reprise of the promo for GÖBEKLI TEPE to Stonehenge. Go well, folks.
Good to see you, Jane.
Night to all.
We would like you to help us to take you on an extraordinary journey.
We're asking you to help us answer the question of not only how did this amazing monument down here in the south of France come to be, this is the Domaine des Fardes near Cyril, but what led to the construction of thousands and thousands of megalithic monuments throughout northwestern Europe, and ultimately, at the end of the Neolithic period, Stonehenge, about 1,000 miles that way, on the Salisbury Plain.
The answer isn't here nor on Salisbury Plain, and in order to even begin to tell the story of the Neolithic, we need to be somewhere else, and at another time, thousands of years even before this ancient monument was built. And for that, we need to head east.
Our passion is in helping to tell the story of how, from the earliest farming in Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent, humans came to leave their mark on the world in the form of the great tombs, henges and megaliths that we wonder at today.
We plan to make a series of films to illustrate that story, and we'd like your help.
We need your support to raise the funds necessary to begin filming the series, starting right now with the first episode. Supporting this project is really easy. We have a Buy Me a Coffee webpage where you can make a contribution for as little as $5 or as much as you want. Each and every single dollar raised will go towards the travel and subsistence costs necessary for each stage of filming. You'll find loads more information about our plans and our funding goals on our Buy Me a Coffee website. For the moment, though, it seems that we've come as far as we can. In front of us is the Mediterranean Sea.
That way, that lies Italy, Sardinia, Greece, the Aegean, Turkey, Cyprus, northeast. What have we got northeast? We've got the Great Steppe, we've got the Balkans, up the Danube. Ah, good grief. That way. What have we got that way?
Well, if we turn right, go that way, turn right, then we'd go along the bottom part of Spain, of Andalusia, and, up the Atlantic seaboard, up to Brittany, which leaves only one place left to go, really, isn't it?
Go home for us, yes.
Yeah. The point is we're going to have to visit all these places if we're going to stand a chance, any chance at all, of explaining the presence on Salisbury Plain of a set of sarsen stones we call Stonehenge.
Yes, so please donate now and help us to start that journey.
We thank you very much indeed.